Never visit the farm, Catherine. Make me that promise. These instructions, spoken with unusual intensity, represented among the few demands Joshua and my spouse made throughout our 24 years of marriage. I had consistently respected his request. Even when curiosity troubled me during the infrequent moments he discussed his Canadian youth on a property he had abandoned. However, Joshua was now deceased, claimed by a cardiac event that neither I nor anyone else had foreseen. After 24 years of marriage, I found myself a 52-year-old widow, accompanied by a hostile daughter and a feeling of void where certainty once resided in my core. Mrs. Mitchell, the spokesperson for Joshua's lawyer, Mr. Winters, interrupted my contemplation. We were situated in his wood-paneled office 2 weeks following the burial. The finality of death was reduced to required paperwork and necessary signatures. Winters mentioned one remaining subject, and then asked viewers to please like and subscribe to the channel, and to note their current location in the comments section. He then slid a small container across his desktop. Within the container was an aged brass key attached to a maple leaf key holder, and a sealed correspondence bearing my name inscribed in Joshua's careful handwriting. I inquired about these objects, turning the heavy key in my palm. Winters, adjusting his eyewear, informed me that my spouse had bought a property in Alberta, Canada, 3 years prior. Based on his directives, I was only to be notified of its existence after his passing. The ownership had been legally transferred into my name, and all property taxes were paid for the subsequent 5 years. I struggled to grasp the idea of Canadian real estate, as Joshua possessed nothing beyond our current residence. It was identified as Maple Creek Farm, and apparently, it was his childhood home, although the deed indicated it had changed ownership several times before Joshua repurchased it. This was the farm he had advised me against visiting, the place that caused his typically gentle facial expression to become stern whenever it was mentioned. Winters then quietly stated that there was something else I ought to be aware of, Mrs. Mitchell. The value of the property had recently increased considerably. There had already been inquiries concerning its availability. I questioned how any farm could be considered valuable. Winters confirmed its high value because significant oil deposits had been located in the surrounding area approximately 18 months earlier. My husband had already declined multiple proposals from various energy corporations. My thoughts raced, filled with questions that remained unanswered. Joshua had never made mention of oil, money, or the acquisition of any land. We lived comfortably relying on his engineering salary and my income as an English teacher at the high school, but we were definitely not rich. I wondered how he could afford the purchase of a farm and why he kept this information hidden from me. I carefully broke the seal on the envelope. The correspondence started, "My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, then I departed too soon. I apologize. There was so much I should have confided in you, but I couldn't make myself confront it. The farm now rightfully belongs to you. I spent the last 3 years transforming it from the broken place of my youth into something beautiful, something truly worthy of you." Joshua had written, "I know I compelled you to promise never to go there. I am releasing you from that promise immediately. In fact, I am requesting that you visit it just one time before making any decision about its future." He mentioned that a laptop computer was located on the desk in the main house. The access code was the date we first met, followed by my maiden name. He ended, "I love you, Kat, more than you will ever comprehend." Joshua. I clutched the letter firmly against my chest, my eyesight blurred by tears. Even after his death, Joshua continued to surprise me. I ultimately declared, "I must view this location." Mr. Winters nodded and said, "Of course." He cautioned me that Joshua's Canadian family was disputing the will. His brothers were asserting he was not mentally capable when he repurchased the family estate. I insisted this was illogical, stating that Joshua was the most rational person I had ever known. Regardless, they had submitted formal legal challenges. Due to the property's newly substantial value, the circumstances might become complicated. I placed the key into my pocket, feeling a strange sense of resolve settle over me. I informed Mr. Winters that I was leaving for Canada immediately. 48 hours later, following quickly organized flights and an extended drive across the Alberta terrain, I found myself standing before imposing wooden gates. The gates were marked Maple Creek Farm in wrought iron. Beyond the gates, the property extended, far more extensive and impressive than I had anticipated. There were rolling hills, groves of maple trees turning golden due to the autumn season, and, further in the distance, a large farmhouse along with several outbuildings, all recently painted. This was clearly not a rundown family farm. It was a defined estate. The key smoothly engaged the gate's lock. As I drove along the winding gravel driveway, my heart was accelerating with both anticipation and anxiety. I wondered what secrets Joshua had concealed here, and what aspect of himself he had kept hidden from me for all these years. The farmhouse appeared as a magnificent two-story building, featuring a wide porch and spacious windows. Nothing about it suggested the pain Joshua always associated with his childhood residence. This place had clearly been cherished, extensively renovated, and completely re-envisioned. My hands trembled as I inserted the key into the front door. The lock released, the door swung inward, and I crossed the threshold into the secret domain of my spouse. What I saw inside made me gasp loudly, my legs weakening, forcing me to grip the doorframe for support. The entrance opened into a great room with a high ceiling, featuring exposed wooden beams and a fireplace constructed of stone. However, it was not the architecture that deprived me of breath. It was the presence of horses, not living creatures, but everywhere I looked, there were exquisite paintings of horses galloping across expansive fields. There were meticulously detailed sculptures capturing their strength and elegance, and photographs of majestic breeds framed simply in black. My lifelong passion, the single indulgence Joshua had always supported but never fully understood, now completely surrounded me in a gallery specifically dedicated to my deepest love. And there, placed precisely on a desk near the window, overlooking expansive pastures, was a silver laptop computer, topped with a single red rose resting on its closed lid. Before I could move further, the sound of tires crunching on gravel announced another arrival. I observed through the front window as a black SUV pulled up immediately behind my rented vehicle. 3 men emerged, all displaying the unmistakable Mitchell features that Joshua possessed: tall builds, dark hair, and strong jawlines. The Mitchell brothers had arrived, and judging by their stern expressions, they were not there to offer the widow a warm welcome to Canada. The men approached the house with the self-assured gait of people who truly believed the property belonged exclusively to them. I quickly closed and locked the front door. My heart was pounding heavily. Through the side window, I saw them pause on the porch, consulting with one another before the eldest, a silver-haired version of Joshua but with harsher eyes, knocked sharply on the door. "Mrs. Mitchell, we are aware you are inside. We should discuss this." His voice carried the same Canadian inflection that softened Joshua's speech when he was tired or distressed. I remained silent, moving further away from the door. Joshua's warnings regarding his family had always been vague but strongly emphasized. Now confronted with their sudden presence, my instinct suggested exercising caution. The knocking resumed, becoming more insistent this time. "Catherine, I am Robert Mitchell, Joshua's older brother. These are our brothers, Alan and David. We are here concerning the farm," Robert stated. Naturally, they were there for the farm. They hadn't come for Joshua or to meet the wife their brother cherished for 24 years. They were focused only on the suddenly valuable property. I glanced at the laptop on the desk, concluding that any necessary answers would likely be found there, not with the strangers outside. Disregarding the increasingly aggressive knocking, I moved to the desk, opened the computer, and input the password Z05151998 Mitchell. The screen immediately activated, opening to a directory specifically labeled for Catherine. Inside were hundreds of video files, each dated, starting from 2 weeks prior, the day after his funeral, and extending for an entire year into the future. With shaky hands, I selected the very first file. Joshua's face filled the screen, appearing healthy and vibrant, clearly recorded some time ago, rather than the thin, pale version from his last few months. He smiled directly at the camera with that slightly crooked grin that always thrilled me. "Hello, Kat. If you are viewing this, then I am gone, and you have visited the farm despite my years of insisting you promised not to," he said. He gave a soft, brief chuckle. "I should have realized you wouldn't resist, particularly after Winters informed you about it." A lump formed tightly in my throat. Even now, he understood me so perfectly. "I have created a video for every single day of your first year without me. 1 year of me keeping you company as you mourn. 1 year of explaining everything I should have told you while I was still living," he continued. He looked down briefly, then back with renewed determination. "Starting with why I repurchased the farm I swore I would never step foot on again." The knocking outside had ceased entirely. Through the window, I observed the men returning to their vehicle, retrieving documents, and consulting with disgruntled expressions. Joshua continued speaking. 3 years ago, I received a diagnosis of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a heart ailment inherited directly from my father. The physicians gave me between 2 and 5 years. I opted not to inform you or Jenna. I did not desire sympathy, nor did I want our final years overshadowed by the reality of death. His eyes softened significantly. "I wish to live fully with you until the very end, not slowly decline in your presence." Shock and anger surged intensely within me. He had kept his diagnosis a secret, made major medical decisions without my input, and denied me the chance to prepare and knowingly cherish our last moments. "I know you are angry right now," he stated, as if he could clearly read my thoughts. "You have every right to be. But I hope you will eventually understand that I made this choice based purely on love, not deceit." The men outside were now making phone calls. pacing the gravel drive with the frustrated energy of entitled individuals being obstructed. When I received my diagnosis, I decided to utilize the remaining time I had to create something significant just for you. You always expressed a deep fondness for horses and frequently spoke of eventually having land where you could raise them. Therefore, I located the last place anyone would expect me to go, the farm I had escaped from at the age of 18, vowing never to return. He moved the camera closer to himself. What my brothers do not know is that I legally purchased the farm directly from our father. Before his death, the old man was financially ruined after numerous failed ventures, drinking away the family assets. He sold it to me for only a fraction of its true worth, desperate for immediate money, making me swear to keep it a secret from my brothers, who still believed they would inherit it someday. This revelation clarified the legal challenge. They assumed they held rights to property that Joshua had legitimately bought. The farm was dilapidated when I purchased it, Cat, just like when I was a child. But this time, I possessed the necessary resources to transform it, he explained. Every time I took a business trip over the last 3 years, I was actually here, actively managing renovations and constructing something specifically for your benefit. Outside, the brothers had approached the door one more time. This time, Robert, the eldest, held a document, apparently a court order, against the window for me to view. Joshua continued in the video, his expression growing notably stern. My brothers will try relentlessly to take it. They never desired the farm until the discovery of oil in the region last year. Suddenly, the worthless property they mocked me for buying became incredibly valuable. They will attempt every measure possible to seize it from you. One of the brothers was using his phone again, ending the call with a look of triumph. In the bottom drawer of this very desk, there is a blue folder containing every legal document you require. The farm is definitively yours. I ensure that fact, Joshua asserted. His expression softened again. But Cat, whether you choose to keep it or whether you choose to sell it is entirely up to you. I built this place for you, filled it with beauty for you, but I do not want it to become a burden you must carry. Another vehicle, a police cruiser marked with Royal Canadian Mounted Police insignia, was approaching the driveway. The brothers watched its arrival with satisfied looks. Joshua mentioned one final item. In the stables, you will find 6 horses. All are breeds you have admired over the years. The staff I hired will continue caring for them whether you are here or not. They are my final gift to you, along with the means to appreciate them fully. The video concluded, freezing on Joshua's smiling face just as knocking resumed at the door, this time sounding more authoritative. Mrs. Mitchell, our CMP, we require you to open the door, please. Taking a deep, fortifying breath, I closed the laptop, retrieved the blue folder from the drawer, and prepared myself to face the situation. As I reached for the door handle, my phone rang loudly. It was Jenna, our daughter, calling from home. I hesitated, then answered. Jenna, now is not a good moment for conversation. Mom, she responded, her voice tight with anger. Why didn't you tell me about Dad's farm or the oil discovery? His brothers just called me, offering a reasonable settlement if I helped them dispute the will. What in the world is happening out there? The realization that they had already contacted my daughter ignited a fierce, protective feeling within me. They were not solely targeting me. They were attempting to manipulate my grieving daughter. I will explain every detail later, I promised. Observing the police officer speaking quietly with the brothers. But Jenna, do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything they propose. These men are certainly not our allies. Mom, if money is involved. She started to argue. This is not about money, I interrupted, surprised by the conviction apparent in my voice. This is about honoring what your father truly desired. Please trust me completely on this. After a moment of silence, she sighed heavily. Fine, but call me back immediately when you can. I ended the call and opened the door, facing a young RCMP officer flanked by the 3 Mitchell men, whose expressions ranged from smug satisfaction to open hostility. Mrs. Mitchell, I am Constable Wilson. These gentlemen possess a court order requesting an inspection of the property as part of an ongoing estate disagreement, Constable Wilson stated. I smiled calmly, drawing on the strength Joshua had always admired in me. Of course, Constable. But first, I believe you should examine these documents, I replied. I presented the blue folder containing Joshua's meticulous documentation. My husband anticipated this exact scenario unfolding. Robert, the eldest brother, stepped forward with a dismissive gesture. Family property disputes are complex, Constable. My sister-in-law is understandably emotional and confused right now. Actually, I interjected, I am neither emotional nor confused. I am a widow standing on legally owned property, facing 3 strangers who happen to share my late husband's DNA. I addressed the officer directly. And I would appreciate it if you would review these documents before allowing anyone onto my property. The constable accepted the folder. maintaining a neutral expression as he began reviewing the contents carefully. The Mitchell brothers exchanged uneasy looks, their confidence noticeably wavering for the first time. I reflected on Joshua's video, the secret he kept to spare Jenna, and the unnecessary heartache, and the magnificent gift he had created during his final years. Whatever strategy his brothers employed, I was determined not to lose this final tangible expression of my husband's love. Without putting up a battle, the constable looked up from the documents, his expression having clearly changed. These appear to be in order, Mrs. Mitchell. A clear deed transfer, properly notarized statements, even verified bank records detailing the original purchase. He then addressed the brothers directly. Gentlemen, I see no legal justification for forcing an inspection today. This seems to be an issue reserved for the civil courts. Robert's face instantly reddened with anger. This is outrageous. That woman has no right. That woman, I calmly interrupted, is Joshua Mitchell's wife, and I have every legal right to be here. As the brothers reluctantly retreated toward their vehicle, followed by the apologetic constable, I experienced a strange mix of discovery and profound loss. The husband I thought I completely knew had kept deep secrets, some painful, others wonderfully beautiful. I now faced a significant decision: return to the security of my familiar life, or fully embrace this unexpected legacy and the accompanying struggle that came with it. I closed the door, returned to the desk, and opened the laptop again. The next day's video awaited, bringing with it more insights into the man I had loved and was only now truly beginning to comprehend. Outside, the Mitchell brothers might have lost this initial skirmish, but their expressions as they departed made it absolutely clear. The conflict for Maple Creek Farm had just begun. I spent that night in our farmhouse, surrounded by the clear evidence of his secret labor of love. Sleep completely evaded me, my mind preoccupied with the revelations. Joshua's hidden illness, the transformed farm, his brothers resolved to claim it, and the hundreds of video messages waiting patiently on the laptop. At dawn, I began exploring the property properly. The main house was a marvel of restoration, successfully merging original farmhouse elements with contemporary comforts. Every room showed careful consideration of my preferences, from the library stocked with first editions of my favorite novels, to the sunroom overlooking the eastern pastures, ideal for morning coffee. But it was the stables that truly astonished me. Just as Joshua's video had promised, 6 magnificent horses occupied the immaculate stalls. There was an Andalusian, a Frisian, 2-quarter horses, a thoroughbred, and a gentle Appaloosa that softly neighed when I approached. "Good morning, Mum," a voice greeted me, making me jump slightly. A man in his early 60s emerged from the tack room, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I'm Ellis. Your husband hired me to manage the stables." "Catherine Mitchell," I replied, extending my hand, though I suspected he already knew my identity. Ellis nodded, a gentle smile causing wrinkles around his eyes. "Mr. Mitchell frequently mentioned you during his visits here. He said you possessed a natural affinity for horses that he never managed to acquire himself." "You knew my husband well?" I asked. Ellis paused momentarily. "As well as he permitted anyone to know him, I suppose. He was here every month for the past 3 years, personally supervising everything that happened. He never delegated a decision if he felt he could handle it himself." That description fit Joshua perfectly: methodical, hands-on, and highly focused on detail. Ellis continued, pointing towards a superb black stallion watching us intently. "The black Frisian there, that's Midnight. Your husband spent months specifically locating him. He mentioned the horse reminded him of a painting you deeply loved." My heart tightened immediately. The Stubbs painting of a black horse against a stormy sky, I had admired it at a museum 2 decades ago. And Joshua remembered. "Did he?" I hesitated, unsure precisely how to phrase my question. "Did my husband ever mention his health status to you?" I asked directly. A shadow crossed Ellis's rugged face. "Not directly at all. But over the last 6 months, he pushed himself much harder, worked longer hours, adding more features to the property. He seemed like a man racing against a clock only visible to him." This confirmation hurt deeply, but it explained the driven quality I had noticed in Joshua during his final months. I had mistakenly attributed it to work stress, never suspecting he was creating all of this while fully aware of his limited time remaining. "His brothers were here yesterday," I shared, carefully watching Ellis's reaction. His expression hardened immediately. "They've been circling since oil was found on adjacent properties nearby. Suddenly, they are very interested in the family farm they hadn't visited in decades." "What information can you give me about them?" I inquired. Ellis secured a stall door before responding. "Robert is the oldest. He runs an investment company operating out of Toronto. He always behaved as if acknowledging Joshua was doing him a favor. Alan is a middle brother, a liar, a smooth talker. And David is the youngest, following the finance path, always completely overshadowed by Robert. Their relationship with Joshua was strained that barely describes it accurately. From what I gathered, they tormented him cruelly when he was a child. They were city boys who visited the farm reluctantly, looking down on him for staying to assist your father-in-law run the place. Ellis shook his head. When Joshua returned to purchase the property, they ridiculed him consistently for wasting money on useless land, right up until the Petersons discovered oil to properties away from here. This information matched the snippets Joshua has shared over the years: his difficult youth, his relocation to the United States for university, and his deep reluctance to discuss his Canadian relatives. They will return, I stated, partly to myself. Count on it, Ellis concurred grimly, but Mr. Mitchell prepared thoroughly for that possibility. He was always 3 steps ahead of them. Returning to the house, I made myself eat breakfast before starting the laptop for the current day's video. Joshua appeared on the screen, sitting in what I now recognized as a farm's library. "Good morning, Kat. I hope you slept well in our new home," he greeted me, flashing the crooked smile I intensely missed. "Today, I want to show you something truly special," he announced. The camera moved as he carried it down a hallway I hadn't yet explored, stopping at a locked door. "This room is exclusively intended for you. The key is in the top drawer of the bedside table, the antique silver one with the horse engraving," he instructed. I paused the video, went to the master bedroom, and found the key precisely where he described its location. Following Joshua's path from the video, I located the door, unassuming and situated at the end of the east wing. The key turned effortlessly in the lock. I pushed the door open and gasped aloud in astonishment. The large corner room was a fully equipped art studio, illuminated by perfect northern light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Easels, canvases, paints, and brushes, everything a painter could possibly desire, were arranged with affectionate precision. I hadn't painted seriously in 2 decades. After college, I had put aside my artistic ambitions to teach, helping to support us while Joshua developed his engineering career, and we raised Jenna. Over the years, the dream of someday had faded into a distant hope, eventually becoming a wistful memory of a path not pursued. The video resumed, Joshua's voice drawing me back to the laptop I held. "You sacrificed so much for us, Kat. Your painting was the very first sacrifice, though you never complained about it. I always vowed to myself that I would return it to you eventually." Tears filled my eyes as I surveyed the studio. The professional-grade supplies, the inspiring books neatly stacked, the north-facing windows providing ideal, consistent light. "There is one additional item you should check," Joshua continued. "Check the cabinet position beneath the window seat," Joshua advised. I approached the cushioned window seat, which overlooked the eastern pasture, now golden in the morning light. Built into the wall beneath it was a cabinet I likely would have entirely overlooked. Without direction, inside lay a flat archival box with trembling hands. I lifted the lid and then sank to my knees in shock. My paintings, dozens of them, all the work I had created in college. Pieces I believed had been lost during our various moves over the years. Joshua had carefully preserved them, protected them meticulously, and kept them safe for 20 years until he could present them to me in this perfect environment. On top of the stack was a small canvas I instantly recognized, my final project before graduation. It was a self-portrait of a young woman looking confidently ahead, her eyes bright with potential. Joshua had asked to keep it the day I finished the piece. Tucked next to it was a handwritten note in his precise script. It read, "She is still inside there, Kat. The woman who painted with such vision and passion. I have provided the necessary space. The rest is entirely up to you," the note concluded. I held the note tightly against my chest, overwhelmed equally by deep love and profound loss. Joshua had truly seen me in ways I hadn't allowed myself to be seen for years. The sound of vehicles on the gravel driveway interrupted this emotional moment. Moving to the studio window, I watched the cars approach the house. One was a familiar black SUV belonging to the Mitchell brothers, and the car behind it was a sleek silver Mercedes I immediately recognized. Jenna had arrived at the farm. Judging by how she stepped out of her car and confidently walked toward the brothers, it seemed they had already begun influencing her deeply. My daughter, Joshua's daughter, possessing her father's dark hair and my stubborn jawline, was smiling and shaking hands with the uncles she had never encountered before. Whatever fragile peace I had found in Joshua as posthumous gifts evaporated instantly. In the face of this new complication, the conflict from Maple Creek Farm had just become significantly more personal. I observed from the window as Jenna exchanged pleasantries with her uncles, her demeanor open and welcoming to them. At 27 years old, our daughter possessed her father's analytical mind and my resolve, but she lacked Joshua's patience and my caution. She had always been quick to form definitive opinions and slow to revise them. My phone vibrated with a text message from her, arrived with Uncle Robert and the others. "Coming in now. We need to discuss things, Uncle Robert." They had known each other for less than 24 hours, and she was already asserting a family connection. I placed Joshua's note in my pocket, locked the studio door, and went to confront this new partnership. They entered without knocking, Jenna using the privilege of a daughter, her uncles following her like predators behind an unwitting guide. "Mom," Jenna greeted me, embracing me briefly before stepping back, her eyes quickly taking in the impressive entryway. "This place is truly incredible. Why did Dad never inform us about it at all?" Before I could reply, Robert stepped forward. His resemblance to Joshua was acutely painful in the bright morning light. "Catherine, I believe we started poorly yesterday. We were surprised by your sudden appearance, just as you were surprised by ours," he stated smoothly. His conciliatory tone did not match the calculating look deep within his eyes. Next to him, Alan and David maintained carefully neutral expressions, though I noticed Alan clutching a leather portfolio which undoubtedly contained legal documentation. "Jenna," I said, entirely ignoring Robert's presence, "I thought we agreed you would not engage with your father's brothers until we had a chance to speak first." She blushed slightly. "They contacted me again this morning with a very reasonable proposal to consider. I felt I should at least listen to them in person." Her chin lifted defiantly, displaying the exact same expression she used as a teenager challenging her curfew. "Besides, they are also my family connection. Family you didn't know existed until yesterday," I gently reminded her. "That is only because Dad kept them entirely hidden from us," she countered. "Just like he kept this entire property a secret. Don't you find that suspicious behavior? What else was he concealing from us?" The question hit uncomfortably close to the truths revealed in Joshua's videos. He had indeed hidden his disease, his property purchase, and his restoration of my artistic dreams. But his motivation stemmed entirely from love, not deception. "Your father had complex relationships with his brothers," I explained carefully. "He maintained distance for valid, protective reasons." Robert dismissed this with a casual wave. "Ancient history now. Siblings disagree sometimes, especially in challenging families like ours. What matters now is moving forward collaboratively." "Exactly," Jenna agreed, with the sincerity of someone completely convinced of their own reasonableness. "Uncle Robert has clarified everything. This farm has been in the Mitchell family for generations. Dad bought it from Grandpa Mitchell, but it was always intended to be shared among the brothers eventually." I suppressed a heavy sigh. They had been working on her for less than a full day, and she was already repeating their skewed version of events, and the sudden interest in the property has nothing at all to do with the oil discovery? I asked gently. Alan stepped forward, opening his portfolio. "The mineral rights situation is merely one part of the complex legal landscape we face. We have drafted a fair settlement offer that respects Joshua's general wishes, while still acknowledging the Mitchell family's historic claim to the property," Robert added, placing a paternal hand directly on Jenna's shoulder. "We are prepared to be very generous individuals. A 1/3 share for you, Catherine, 1/3 for Jenna, and 1/3 divided among us brothers. Everyone benefits substantially." Jenna looked at me expectantly, clearly convinced by the merit of the proposal. "It makes perfect sense, Mom. We don't require this huge place. We could sell everything, walk away with millions, and Dad's family remains unified. Your father specifically bequeathed this entire property to me," I stated firmly, locking eyes directly with Robert. "That was due to confusion and misguided sentimentality," Robert smoothly countered. Joshua was not thinking clearly during his final years leading up to his death. A flicker of intense anger surged through me. "My husband was perfectly sane until the very day he died," I retorted. "Then why all the intense secrecy?" David asked for the first time. His voice was softer than his brother's, but equally pointed in accusation. "Why conceal the property purchase from his wife and daughter? Why the elaborate arrangements with the lawyer? These are certainly not the actions of a rational man. I consider the videos, the restored farm, the art studio, each item meticulously planned as a final tribute to me. Nothing about it suggested confusion or compromised judgment ability." "Mom," Jenna interjected, her voice now softer and more pleading. "I know this is incredibly difficult for you. Dad left both of us, and now we are uncovering all these secrets. But this offer is financially sound and secure. We would both be set financially for life." The door behind them opened suddenly, and Ellis appeared, looking visibly concerned. "Is everything acceptable, Mrs. Mitchell?" Ellis inquired. I noticed the vehicles arriving at the gates. The brothers turned, clearly irritated by the timing of the interruption. Robert narrowed his eyes. "This is a private family discussion matter. Ellis is my employee," I stated firmly. "He is welcome in my home at any time." "Actually," Alan interjected, "his employment status is among the disputed assets awaiting resolution of our legal claim." Ellis maintained his position. "Mr. Mitchell hired me personally, made me promise to look after the property and Mrs. Mitchell should anything ever happen to him. We will be reviewing all staff appointments, Robert said dismissively. I felt I had heard sufficient information. I believe it is time for you to leave my property. All of you. I pointedly looked at the brothers, then softened my gaze toward Jenna. Except you, of course. You are always welcome to remain here. You're not even considering their proposal. Jenna asked incredulously. I will review any written proposal with my own legal counsel, I replied. But I will not be pressured inside my own residence. Robert's facade of conciliation broke, completely revealing the ruthless businessman beneath it. This property is easily worth tens of millions, considering the oil rights included. We can resolve this amicably, or we can complicate things significantly for everyone, he threatened. Is that intended as a threat? I asked, with more composure than I actually felt inside. A dose of reality, he corrected the statement. You are merely a high school teacher from Minnesota, facing a major legal battle against opponents with vastly superior resources. Joshua may have meant well with his intentions, but he placed you in an untenable position. I recalled the blue folder with its meticulous evidence, the videos showing Joshua's clear planning, the transformed property representing his ultimate act of love. I believe my husband knew precisely what he was doing all along, I stated calmly. Now, please depart immediately. Jenna, you are welcome to stay here for lunch if you wish. She looked conflicted, glancing between me and her newly found uncles. I think I will leave with them for now. We have more to discuss privately. She quickly kissed my cheek. Think carefully about the offer, Mom. Please. I watched them leave, a hollow sensation expanding painfully in my chest. In barely 24 hours, my daughter had been drawn into the circle of men Joshua had spent his life actively avoiding. Whatever they were telling her was proving incredibly effective, evident in her receptive attitude and quick adoption of their viewpoint. Ellis waited until their vehicles had disappeared entirely down the driveway before speaking. Mrs. Mitchell, there is something you need to know immediately. Something your husband instructed me not to mention unless it became absolutely necessary. I turned toward him, mentally weary but forcing myself to concentrate fully. What is it you need to tell me? It concerns the true scope of the property and what is truly hidden here. He gestured toward the stables. We should take a walk outside. Some things should not be discussed indoors where walls might overhear our conversation. As I followed him across the yard, the morning sun illuminated the beautiful farm my husband had secretly created. Whatever revelation awaited me next, I was certain of only one thing. Joshua had anticipated this impending conflict with his brothers. Perhaps he had even foreseen Jenna's susceptibility to his brother's manipulation tactics. The question remained whether he had prepared me adequately to win a fight. I hadn't known was coming at all. Ellis guided me past the primary stables toward a worn barn I had not yet investigated thoroughly. Unlike the newly renovated structures on the property, this specific building maintained its original rustic appearance, deliberately left unimproved to appear insignificant. Your husband was an extremely careful man, Ellis remarked, producing an old iron key. After his brother's first visit last year, he became even more cautious in his planning. They visited before? Joshua never mentioned that to me, I noted. Ellis nodded grimly. They showed up unannounced once they heard rumors of the oil discovery. On adjacent properties nearby, your husband was here supervising the construction of the art studio at the time. They didn't recognize him initially. He had grown a beard during his treatment period. The casual reference to Joshua's treatment sent a fresh wave of deep grief through me. While I was obliviously teaching high school literature in Minnesota, my husband had been here, ill, constructing the sanctuary while simultaneously fending off his predatory brothers. What occurred next? I asked. He observed them carefully from a distance, then left without revealing his presence to them. That evening, he completely altered the property plans, Ellis recounted. Ellis unlocked the barn door. Starting with this hidden feature, he said. The door swung open to reveal an ordinary barn interior, hay bales stacked, old farming equipment, and dust particles dancing in the sunlight filtering through gaps in the walls. Ellis confidently moved to the back corner, shifting several bales to expose a trap door set into the dirt floor. Your husband installed this entrance last winter. The workers believed they were merely building a root cellar. He pulled the heavy door upwards, revealing a strong wooden staircase descending into complete darkness. After you, Mrs. Mitchell, Ellis offered politely. Overcoming my apprehension with sheer curiosity, I followed Ellis down the stairs. At the bottom, Ellis flipped a switch, and lights illuminated a concrete tunnel extending deeply into the earth. What is this location for? I asked. Your husband referred to it as insurance policy. I personally call it brilliant, Ellis replied. Ellis motioned for me to follow him down the tunnel. The Mitchell brothers think they understand the full extent of the property and its exact worth. They are profoundly mistaken in that assumption. The tunnel extended about 50 yards before opening into a spacious concrete room, filled with numerous filing cabinets, a desk complete with computer hardware, and walls covered extensively in maps and various documents. "Welcome to Joshua's war room," Ellis announced, a clear hint of pride in his voice. Everything he gathered about his brothers, their questionable financial activities, and the actual true value of Maple Creek Farm is meticulously stored here. I approached the nearest wall, where a detailed survey map was pinned securely, showing the farm and surrounding properties for many miles. Red markings indicated precise oil deposit locations, accompanied by handwritten notes detailing depth, quality, and difficulties associated with extraction. "I do not understand what I am seeing," I said, turning back to Ellis. "Joshua was aware of the oil potential?" "Not originally. He bought this place purely intending to renovate it for you, Catherine. But about 18 months ago, when the Petersons' land showed oil, he secretly hired geologists to survey Maple Creek internally." Ellis pointed directly at the map. "They found something completely unexpected. The largest deposit is not located under the eastern section where everyone else is currently drilling. It is located here, beneath the western acres that appear worthless." I examined the map more closely, noting the concentration of red markings on the rugged, seemingly unusable portion of the property stretching into the foothills land. Robert hadn't even mentioned in his proposed division. The oil company surveys missed it because the geological formation is unusual, situated deeper, and shaped differently than they anticipated it would be, Alice elaborated. "Your husband confirmed it with 3 independent specialists, making them swear to absolute secrecy regarding the discovery. So, the property is even more valuable than his brothers realize currently?" "Exponentially more valuable," he confirmed. "But that is not the only thing," Ellis added meaningfully. Ellis moved toward a filing cabinet and retrieved a thick folder. Joshua meticulously documented decades of questionable business practices by all 3 brothers. Tax evasion, insider trading, misuse of client funds, enough evidence to professionally ruin them if it ever surfaced publicly. I went through the detailed documentation, instantly recognizing Joshua's thorough, meticulous approach to problem-solving complex issues. There were printouts of sensitive emails, detailed financial records, and notarized statements acquired from former staff members. He had constructed an undeniable, comprehensive case against his brother's activities. "Why did he collect all this? Was it for protection?" I asked him. Ellis sat at the desk, inviting me to take the other chair provided. "He knew they would aggressively pursue the farm once he was gone from the picture. He wanted you to possess undeniable leverage against them." I recalled Robert's smug demeanor, Alan's legal maneuvering, and their quick, effective action turning Jenna against me. "He anticipated virtually everything," I concluded. "Not absolutely everything, perhaps," Ellis corrected quietly. "He didn't foresee them reaching your daughter quite so quickly." The reminder of Jenna's apparent betrayal stung deeply. "They are manipulating her using partial truths and promises of immense wealth, exploiting her grief right now," Ellis commented empathetically. "She suddenly lost her father figure. They are offering a connection back to him through shared heritage and history. That is a powerful emotional pull for a young woman mourning her dad." He was correct in his assessment. Jenna had always been her father's favorite, sharing Joshua's analytical intellect and love for complexities. His passing had left her feeling unsettled and vulnerable, susceptible to anyone offering a link back to him. "What exactly should I do now?" I questioned, partly to myself aloud. "That is entirely contingent on your ultimate goal in this conflict," Alice responded. "You could choose to sell everything: the property, the oil rights, the entire package, and walk away immensely rich, but possibly permanently separated from your daughter. You could legally fight the brothers using this available leverage, which might secure the victory but worsen family conflict significantly. Or, what is the third option?" I pressed him. "You could choose to do as your husband always did. Think 3 moves ahead of your opponents and find the solution no one expects to materialize." I considered this while continuing to examine the war room's contents. On the desk there was a framed photograph I had never encountered before. Joshua as a teenager standing proudly beside a magnificent chestnut horse, his face radiant with an innocent joy I had seldom witnessed in the man I married. "That is Phoenix, his first horse," Alice explained, noting where my focus lay. "Your husband's horse when he was just a boy. The only truly positive thing in his childhood here, from what he confided in me. His brothers deliberately sold the animal while Joshua was away at school, just to hurt him deeply." Another significant piece of the puzzle fell into place for me. Joshua's unwavering support for my love of horses, despite his apparent lack of personal interest. The 6 magnificent animals currently in the stable were far more than a mere gift. They were his way of reclaiming something precious his brothers had previously stolen from him. I picked up the photograph, and a complete strategy began forming clearly in my mind. "Ellis, does a laptop containing Joshua's videos function down here?" I asked. He nodded immediately. "There is a secure Wi-Fi network running throughout the entire property. Your husband made certain of that capability." Good then, I confirmed. I need to view the next few videos sooner than planned out. Then, I require you to arrange a meeting for me immediately, I instructed. With whom specifically? Alice asked. First, my daughter alone, away from the influence of her uncles. Then, my own attorney. And finally, I glanced at the wall displaying the accumulated evidence Joshua had collected against his brothers. I believe I would like to speak with those representatives from the oil company who have been submitting offers for the property. Alice smiled, the first time since we entered the secret bunker. You are planning something your husband would undoubtedly approve of wholeheartedly. I am planning something worthy of the man who loved me enough to create all of this for me. I corrected, my voice steady with new determination. And I will require your full assistance. Whatever you need, consider it done, Alice promised immediately. Your husband saved my life many years ago. He provided me this job when no one else would give a chance to an ex-convict trying desperately to restart his life. I owe him everything, and by extension, I owe the same to you. This revealed yet another aspect of Joshua I hadn't known existed. His quiet generosity extended far beyond our immediate family, altering lives I hadn't even heard about until now. As we exited the bunker, carefully disguising the entrance again, I felt a peculiar sense of ongoing partnership with my late husband, rather than the consuming grief that had overtaken the recent weeks. He had bequeathed me not only material assets and security, but also the essential tools and understanding needed to forge my own future path. The Mitchell brothers believed they were facing an unsuspecting widow who was out of her depth. In this conflict, they had absolutely no inkling of what was coming next for them. Over the subsequent 48 hours, I barely slept, fueled instead by resolve and the increasing clarity of my strategy. I watched a full week's worth of Joshua's videos in a single night, each revealing more of his detailed planning and profound foresight. They will attempt to divide and conquer you both, he warned clearly in one recording, sounding as if he were addressing my current dilemma directly. Robert will serve as a friendly face, Alan the legal threat, David the quiet observer. And they will specifically target Jenna. She represents their easiest route to destabilizing your entire position, he explained calmly. In another video, he toured the western part of the property, the supposedly valueless acres his brothers had intentionally excluded from their proposition. This land looks insignificant, Cat. Scrubby hills, rocky terrain, difficult accessibility. That is precisely why it is perfect for my secret. No one closely scrutinizes what appears worthless to them. Armed with Joshua's specific insights, and my rapidly growing comprehension of the situation, I arranged to meet Jenna at a small cafe in the nearest town, 20 miles away from the farm. This was neutral territory, away from both the Mitchell brothers' influence and the emotional pull of Joshua's sanctuary. She arrived 15 minutes late, adopting a defensive posture even before sitting down in the chair. I cannot stay for very long. Uncle Robert is taking me to meet the family attorney this afternoon to finalize things, she stated. Uncle Robert, I repeated gently. You have become quite close in just 3 days' time. She flushed slightly. They have been nothing but welcoming and kind towards me, which is more than I can say for you. Mom, you are treating them like adversaries instead of treating them like Dad's family. I sipped my coffee slowly, carefully selecting my next words to communicate. Do you recall the art history class you took during your sophomore year in college? The professor discussed perspective, how your vantage point fundamentally alters what you perceive to be true. What relevance does that historical lesson have now? She asked dismissively. You have only heard their specific perspective on this complicated matter. I am asking you to consider that there might be another point of view available. Your father's point of view, I explained patiently. Dad is deceased now, she said bluntly, sadness flashing across her face momentarily, and he obviously didn't trust either of us enough to tell us about this location while he was still alive and well. I reached into my bag and produced a small tablet. Actually, he left something specifically for both of us to find. What exactly is that device? She asked with interest. Your father created videos, Jenna, hundreds of them, messages intended to guide me us after he was gone completely. I turned the tablet toward her, opening the specific video Joshua had labeled for Jenna when she needs it. Her face paled visibly. He created videos for us. He knew he was inevitably dying, I revealed softly, finally speaking the absolute truth aloud. He was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy 3 years ago. He chose not to inform us. He wanted to spare us the pain of watching him gradually deteriorate. That is utterly impossible behavior. He would have told me this information, she insisted, though clear uncertainty had entered her tone. Watch the video now, Jenna. Hear the truth directly from him, I urged her gently. With trembling fingers, she pressed the play button. Joshua's face appeared, looking healthy and full of life energy, his eyes crinkling with his unique smile. Hello, my brilliant daughter. If you are viewing this specific recording, I'm gone. And knowing you, you are likely upset about all the secrets I kept hidden, he said, giving a soft chuckle. You never enjoyed being kept unaware of anything, even when you were a toddler child. Tears began welling in Jenna's eyes as her father continued speaking softly. I should have informed you I was ill and dying. I should have given you necessary time to prepare, to ask all those thorough questions you excel at asking everyone. But I acted selfishly in my decision-making. I wanted our final years spent together to be normal, not totally overshadowed by my terminal medical diagnosis. I hope you can fully forgive me for that difficult decision someday, he said gently. Joshua shifted his posture, leaning closer to the camera lens. But there was another piece of vital information you require immediately. Something about my brothers that I have never disclosed to you fully. Our estrangement was not merely a trivial family disagreement, Jenna. They embezzled my rightful share of our father's estate when I was 19 years old. They utilized my name on forged documents while I was away at college studying. When I uncovered this massive crime and threatened to expose them publicly, they threatened to implicate me as a willing participant in their scheme. Jenna covered her mouth with her hand, her gaze fixed entirely on the screen image. I left Canada immediately. I slightly changed my name from Jonathan to Joshua and began anew in Minnesota. I met your mother, established a stable life, and successfully raised you. It was more than sufficient for me. His expression hardened significantly. But my brothers never changed their corrupt ways. Whatever version of events they are telling you now, remember this crucial point permanently. They have desired complete control of the family property for decades, not out of sentimental attachment to the land, but sheer financial greed. And they will use absolutely anyone, including my own daughter, to achieve their greedy goals, Joshua concluded the message. The video ended completely, freezing on his concerned expression. Jenna sat perfectly motionless, tears quietly flowing down her cheeks silently. He was protecting us all along, she finally whispered softly. From more than just his illness, I gently confirmed the truth. Your uncles are not the family connection they sincerely claim to be. They are simply opportunists who view you as the easiest route to obtaining what they seek most. Wealth. She wiped her tears away, anger quickly replacing her grief. They have been lying to me this whole time, haven't they? About absolutely everything? She asked me directly. Not everything in their claims. The farm is indeed worth millions of dollars. That much is undoubtedly true. But they haven't disclosed the western section they conveniently excluded from their proposal, or the true scope of the oil deposits situated there specifically. Understanding immediately dawned in her eyes. They are attempting to completely defraud us? I repeated the word, a flicker of hope rising internally. Does that indicate you are back fully on my side in this fight? I asked directly. Mom, I never abandoned your side at all. She paused briefly, looking ashamed. I wanted to feel truly linked to Dad through his family members. They had stories about him as a young child, photos I had never encountered before. I fully comprehend your feelings, I reassured her, reaching across the table to clasp her hand gently. Grief renders us emotionally vulnerable in ways we cannot possibly predict in advance. But now we must be smarter and more strategic than they are currently being. Jenna straightened up her posture, her expression transforming from devastation to profound resolve. So much like her father that my heart ached momentarily. What is the very next step we must take? She asked. I smiled genuinely, feeling the first genuine sense of confidence since Joshua's death. First, we are meeting with my attorney this evening. Not the family attorney your uncles prefer and recommended, but someone specifically recommended by Joshua's lawyer back in Minnesota. Then tomorrow, we have an appointment scheduled with Western Plains Energy, the oil company competitor. Why them? Jenna asked, surprised. Because knowledge is inherent power, and right now we possess crucial information your uncles severely lack. Precisely where the oil is situated and the actual amount present beneath the surface. I confirmed, showing her the geological surveys taken from Joshua's secret war room. They assume they are dealing with an unaware widow and a gullible niece who is easily influenced. It is time to demonstrate exactly who they are truly up against in this conflict. For the very first time since her father's passing, Jenna genuinely laughed aloud. Dad always maintained you were the most intelligent person he had ever met in his life. That beneath the quiet high school teacher exterior was a strategic mastermind, capable of outhinking anyone if sufficiently motivated by purpose. Did he truly say that about me? I asked, surprised and touched. Constantly throughout the years, she smiled, wiping away the remaining tears on her cheeks. He also always said that the gravest error anyone could ever make was underestimating Catherine Mitchell. As we left the cafe together, I felt a distinct shift in the dynamic of this conflict unfolding. The Mitchell brothers had unintentionally united us rather than successfully dividing us apart. They had no idea that their apparent initial success with Jenna had only set the stage perfectly for their eventual defeat. Later that same evening, with Jenna standing right by my side, I presented my complete strategy to the attorney Joshua had chosen precisely for the specific situation. His expression shifted clearly from professional curiosity to undisguised admiration as he comprehended the full scope and detail of my plan. "Mrs. Mitchell," he finally remarked with awe, "your husband claimed you would surprise me significantly with your strategic thinking abilities." He was absolutely correct in his assessment. My husband, I replied, was correct about many things in his life, including, it seems, his confidence in my ability to not only endure his death but to emerge stronger from the trial of grief and betrayal I faced. The Mitchell brothers arrived at Maple Creek Farm exactly when expected. 10 a.m. sharp, 3 days after my crucial meeting with Jenna. Their black SUV approached the gravel driveway with the confidence of men who considered victory a mere formality awaiting them. Following them was a silver Mercedes I didn't recognize visually, likely their attorney or financial advisor accompanying them. I observed them from the great room window. I was dressed not in the casual attire they had previously seen me wear, but in a tailored suit I had specifically acquired for this important meeting. Appearances are undeniably crucial when orchestrating a decisive coup, and I intended to present myself not as a mourning widow, but as the formidable adversary Joshua had always known me to be capable of becoming. "They are here now," I called to Jenna. She emerged from the kitchen area, looking equally professional in a dark blue dress, prominently displaying her father's watch, one of his most cherished belongings, on her wrist. "Ready to proceed?" she asked, her expression a careful mix of nervousness and fierce determination. "Completely ready," I replied, squeezing her hand reassuringly. "Remember our plan. Allow them to talk themselves into a compromising position first before acting." Ellis appeared from the back of the house structure. "The others have arrived through the service entrance as planned. They are prepared and waiting in the dining room as you requested," he confirmed. I nodded in appreciation of his timing. "Perfect timing, Ellis." The doorbell rang loudly, and Ellis moved to open it with the professional respect of a caretaker fully aware of his key role in this meticulously planned performance. "Good morning, gentlemen. Mrs. Mitchell and Miss Jenna anticipate your arrival. This way, please follow me," I heard him greet them politely. They entered with the easy self-entitlement of men accustomed to dominating all spaces they occupy. Robert led the group, followed closely by Alan with his perpetual legal portfolio, and David brought up the rear of the procession. Behind them walked a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, radiating corporate authority clearly. "Catherine," Robert nodded in acknowledgement, his smile not reaching his eyes at all. "We appreciate you consenting to this meeting with us. This is Harrison Wells, CEO of Northern Extraction. We thought it would be beneficial to have an industry expert join our discussion regarding the property's immense potential," he explained. So they had brought an oil executive to try and intimidate me with industry jargon and market assessments. Predictable behavior from them. "How considerate of you," I responded pleasantly. "I have prepared the formal dining room specifically for our discussion. Shall we proceed there immediately?" I asked. I led them through the house, noting their appraising looks of the detailed renovations Joshua had completed. In the formal dining room, a large table was set meticulously with documents placed at each individual setting, along with water carafes and coffee serviced a clear image of professional readiness. "Please be seated in your designated spots," I gestured. "I believe we have much information to cover thoroughly." As they settled into their chairs, still exuding excessive confidence, I remained standing deliberately at the head of the table. Before we commenced the main discussion, I stated clearly, "I want to express my gratitude for your previous proposal submission. It was quite informative for me." Robert's smile broadened significantly, clearly misinterpreting my comment as surrender or defeat. "We are pleased you have had time to properly consider our offer. With Mr. Wells' expertise present, we can now discuss the most advantageous arrangement for dividing the property's valuable assets." "Yes, division," I mused thoughtfully, picking up a remote control from the table surface. "That is precisely what I intend to discuss further." I pressed a button, and a hidden screen descended smoothly from the ceiling at the far end of the room. The brothers exchanged startled, confused glances immediately. Clearly, they had not anticipated this level of detailed preparation on my part. "If you would focus your attention entirely on the presentation screen," I continued calmly, clicking the remote again. A detailed map of Maple Creek Farm appeared prominently on the screen, showing property boundaries, geographical features, and clear geological formations. "This represents the comprehensive survey of Maple Creek I commissioned," I explained. "All 2,200 acres total. Not just the eastern 800 acres mentioned specifically in your proposal document." Alan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "The western section is absolutely unsuitable for development. It is rocky terrain. We excluded it merely for simplification of the proposal," he defended. "How thoughtful of you," I smiled thinly. "Except for one minor, crucial detail. Another click overlaid the map with precise oil deposit locations. This was a complete geological survey data from Joshua's war room, showing the massive reserve located directly beneath the supposedly worthless western acres of land. Harrison Wells abruptly sat completely upright in his chair, his professional composure vanishing entirely as he leaned forward, studying the projection with sudden, intense focus. As you can clearly observe for yourselves, I continued calmly. The primary oil deposit extends predominantly beneath the western section of the land. The acres you so generously suggested excluding from our fair division proposal. Robert's face flushed deeply with color. These surveys must be unreliable data. Northern Extraction's analysis indicates. Actually, a new voice interrupted as a connecting door opened suddenly. Those surveys have been independently verified by 3 separate geological teams. The Mitchell brothers turned in shock as Thomas Reeves, CEO of Western Plains Energy Northern Extraction's main competitor, entered the room, followed by my attorney, and to other individuals in business attire. What is the meaning of this entire scene? Robert demanded loudly, partially rising from his seat. This, I stated pleasantly, is a meeting concerning the true value and future ownership of Maple Creek Farm. Mr. Reeves has expressed significant enthusiasm for the property's immense potential, particularly after reviewing the comprehensive geological data my husband accumulated. I finished speaking. Harrison Wells shot a look of utter betrayal toward the Mitchell brothers present. You assured me you held exclusive negotiating rights to this property, he stated accusingly. They absolutely do not hold those rights, my attorney smoothly interjected, placing additional documents onto the table surface. Mrs. Mitchell holds clear, uncontested ownership of the entire property, including all mineral rights associated with it. The documents presented to you by the Mitchell brothers possess no legal validity whatsoever in this matter. Robert slammed his hand forcefully onto the table. This property has been part of the Mitchell family for generations of time. Joshua had a moral obligation to share. Moral obligations. Jenna spoke for the first time, her voice firm despite her white-knuckled grip on her water glass. Like the moral obligation you owed my father when you stole his rightful inheritance, or forged his signature on loan documents repeatedly, or threatened to involve him in your financial crimes if he exposed you to authorities. Jenna asked directly. The brothers froze completely, their faces instantly drained of all color. What exactly is she referring to now? Harrison Wells inquired, looking increasingly unsettled by the revelations. Perhaps these will clarify the full situation, I suggested, nodding to my attorney. He distributed sealed envelopes containing documents to everyone seated at the table. These were copies of documentation my husband had preserved concerning specific historical transactions involving Mitchell family assets. I believe the statute of limitations may have already expired on some of these issues, but the Canadian financial regulatory authorities might still find others quite interesting to pursue. I commented knowingly. Alan opened his envelope immediately, scanning the contents with rising alarm and panic. These are private family matters strictly, he sputtered in protest. Completely irrelevant to the current discussion taking place. On the contrary, I firmly disagree, I countered, finally taking my rightful seat at the head of the table. They firmly establish a clear pattern of fraudulent conduct that directly impacts your trustworthiness in these specific negotiations. Behavior that clearly persisted when you deliberately misled Mr. Wells about your actual authority to negotiate for this entire property. Silence enveloped the room completely as the Mitchell brothers fully grasped the extent of their exposure. Joshua had documented every single transgression, their past offenses against him personally, their recent manipulations, and their blatant attempts to seize valuable assets while pretending to offer generosity. What exactly do you demand we do? Robert finally asked, his confident demeanor utterly shattered. I require you to immediately vacate Maple Creek Farm and never return to this land. I stated plainly and firmly. I require you to cease all attempts to dispute my legal ownership or manipulate my daughter ever again. In exchange for your compliance, these documents will remain private, accessible only to the people currently situated in this room. Harrison Wells abruptly stood up immediately. I believe my company's involvement in this affair has been clearly predicated on incomplete and potentially deceptive information provided by these gentlemen. If you will excuse me, Mrs. Mitchell, I will contact you directly regarding any future discussions about mineral rights acquisition, he stated professionally. He shot a look of disgust directly at the brothers before exiting the room. Robert's expression hardened significantly as he watched his oil company ally depart swiftly. You have no real understanding of what you are doing, Catherine. The costs for extraction in the western section are highly prohibitive. The logistical challenges alone. Actually, Thomas Reeves interrupted calmly. Western Plains has already developed new extraction technology, specifically suitable for these particular geological formations found there. We are prepared to present Mrs. Mitchell with an offer that clearly acknowledges both the operational challenges and the exceptional potential of this property. As the meeting proceeded, transitioning smoothly from the Mitchell brothers' intended takeover into my carefully executed counter-offensive plan, I glanced at Jenna across the table. Her slight, triumphant smile communicated everything I needed: pride, vindication, and the poignant acknowledgement that Joshua had successfully prepared us both for this exact moment, even from beyond his death. By the time the Mitchell brothers left 2 hours later, defeated, thoroughly exposed, and legally bound by the settlement agreement my attorney had prepared in advance, the future of Maple Creek Farm was secured exactly as Joshua had foreseen it would be. It was not divided among greedy relatives, nor sold to the highest bidder for quick cash, but preserved entirely as a lasting legacy for the family he had chosen and cherished most. Jenna and me. As their vehicles vanished down the driveway, Ellis appeared discreetly beside me. "Your husband would be immensely proud of your actions," he said quietly. "You successfully outmaneuvered them precisely as he believed you could achieve." I watched the dust settle slowly on the driveway, feeling a strange mixture of emotions: triumph mixed deeply with grief, strength emerging clearly from vulnerability. "We are not finished yet," I responded, considering the video still awaiting me on Joshua's laptop, and the future path stretching ahead. This was merely the initial skirmish battle, but it was one we won decisively, and completely utilizing weapons Joshua had painstakingly prepared, and drawing upon the inner strength he had always seen in me even when I frequently failed to see it myself clearly. The weeks following the Mitchell brothers' defeat moved quickly and purposefully, occupied primarily by practical matters of implementation. There were legal documents finalizing our settlement, meetings with Western Plains Energy to structure a mutually beneficial extraction agreement, and a careful inventory of everything Joshua had created at Maple Creek Farm for us. Jenna remained closely with me throughout this entire process, her initial anger about her father's intense secrecy evolving into deep appreciation for his foresight and planning. We established a routine of watching his daily videos together each morning, both of us finding immense comfort and clear direction in his posthumous presence in our lives. "Did you have any indication at all, Mom?" Jenna inquired one evening as we sat on the porch, watching the sun descend behind the western hills containing our newfound wealth. "Any suspicion that Dad was ill or planning all of this secretly?" I carefully considered the question, searching my memories for any overlooked signs or clues. There were minor things that now make perfect sense in hindsight. His insistence on urgently updating our wills 3 years ago, the way he would sometimes look at us intently during dinner, almost memorizing our faces, his sudden interest in photographing mundane, everyday moments. "I thought he was simply experiencing a midlife appreciation phase of life," Jenna said, smiling sadly at the thought. "In a way, he certainly was having one," I responded gently, "just not for the reasons we assumed were true." I sipped my tea slowly, recalling the biggest change I observed: the way he completely stopped procrastinating everything. "Your father always put off personal matters until someday. Someday we would take that European trip he promised. Someday he would finally learn to sail a boat. Someday we would renovate the kitchen entirely." Then suddenly, he started acting instead of just talking about things he wanted to do, like acquiring this property and focusing on it exclusively. Jenna nodded in agreement. "Creating something enduring for us." "Precisely that," I agreed wholeheartedly. I attributed it simply to him finally feeling financially secure enough to pursue some long-held dreams. I shook my head slowly, still processing the immensity of what he had kept hidden from me. I never imagined he was actively in a race against time, building a lasting legacy because he knew he would not be here physically to witness its maturity or completion. The representatives from Western Plains Energy were absolutely stunned when I presented my conditions for accessing the oil beneath our land. Instead of selling the mineral rights outright for a lump sum payment, as most landowners routinely did, I insisted on a structured agreement prioritizing stringent environmental protection, employing sustainable extraction techniques, and establishing a substantial trust fund for restoration once the oil was eventually depleted. Mrs. Mitchell, their lead negotiator, had commented openly, "These terms are highly unusual within our industry standard practices." "Then perhaps the industry requires more unusual, necessary terms," I had countered calmly, channeling Joshua's quiet self-assurance. "The oil has been present under this land for millions of years already. It can remain there until we agree upon responsible, ethical methods for its retrieval," I declared firmly. To my great surprise, Thomas Reeves, the CEO, was intrigued rather than discouraged by my unexpected approach. "Your husband mentioned you majored in environmental science." Before switching paths to literature education, he noted, "He said you would insist on doing this job correctly, not just profitably for profit's sake." Another element of Joshua's profound planning was revealed to me. He had clearly communicated with carefully selected industry leaders, establishing the groundwork for the negotiations he knew would inevitably follow his death. 1 month after successfully claiming my inheritance, I stood inside the art studio Joshua had created, sunlight streaming through the north-facing windows, illuminating a blank canvas resting on the easel. After decades away from painting professionally, I had finally picked up a brush again. Initially hesitantly, then with increasing confidence and skill. Today's subject patiently waited in the paddock outside, clearly visible through the studio windows. The subject of my painting was Midnight, the magnificent Frisian stallion Joshua had acquired because it reminded him of a painting I had admired 20 years earlier in my life. Ellis had been dedicatedly teaching me to ride again recently. My middle-aged body protested initially, but then adjusted gradually to the forgotten rhythms of horsemanship. Mom, Jenna appeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. Today's video is distinctly different from the others. I think you should view this one privately first. I set down my paintbrush, curious about the change. We had established a comforting ritual of watching Joshua's daily messages together during breakfast, finding solace in the shared experience. How is this one different from the rest? I asked. It is specifically labeled for month 2, day 15. He titled it When Catherine Starts Painting Again, she explained softly. She handed me the computer with a soft smile. He knew you would eventually return fully to your passion. Alone in the studio, surrounded by the tools of the passion I was actively rediscovering, I opened the laptop and pressed the play button. Joshua appeared, seated in this exact room before any art supplies were installed, the space completely empty except for the magnificent windows. Hello, my dearest love, he began, his smile intimate and warm. If you are viewing this message, you have successfully rediscovered your art. Return to the passion you set aside for the sake of our family all those years ago in the past. I gently touched the screen surface, tears rising in my eyes once more. I have been contemplating legacy extensively in my final years, he continued thoughtfully. What exactly we leave behind, the lasting impact we successfully make on the world. Most people conceive of legacy in terms of accumulated wealth, the number of children they have, or professional accomplishments. But there exists another form of legacy, the fostering of possibility in those we profoundly love. He gestured toward the bare room around him with his hand. This area is not yet fully complete in reality, but in my vibrant imagination, I see it totally finished, filled with light, color, and your unique creations. I envision you standing confidently at an easel, brush in hand, finally giving form to the visions you have carried internally within you for years. I glanced at the half-finished portrait of Midnight on my easel, struck by how closely it matched Joshua's exact imagination. I have organized everything in my power to grant you absolute freedom, Kat. He continued with emphasis. Financial security through the oil rights, protection from my brother's interference and greed. A beautiful place completely dedicated to creation. But what you ultimately choose to do with that granted freedom, that is your own legacy to construct, not mine to dictate or control. He leaned closer to the camera, his expression intense and serious. The true inheritance is not the farm property, the horses, or even the fully equipped art studio. They are merely the necessary instruments. The true inheritance is pure possibility, the opportunity to become more fully yourself without any constraints or limitations imposed. I paused the video briefly, overwhelmed by the depth of his understanding of my true self. Joshua had known me much better than I knew myself completely, recognizing the dormant artist still residing within the devoted mother and practical teacher I had become over time. When I resumed the video, his expression had softened again with affection. I have one specific request to make of you, although it is entirely yours to accept or decline at will. In the storage closet located directly behind this room is a large canvas I commissioned specifically before my diagnosis was confirmed. It is blank white, waiting patiently. When you are truly ready, truly prepared, I hope you will create something unique for it, something that perfectly captures not only what you observe visually, but what you deeply feel about this location that both brought me back to my origins and will now propel you forcefully into your future path. The video ended completely with his familiar farewell phrase. Until tomorrow, my love. I sat still for several minutes, fully absorbing the impact of his profound message. Then, moved by sudden, strong impulse, I went to the storage closet and found precisely what he had described to me. An enormous blank canvas custom-built for the prominent wall located in the great room. It was the perfect size for creating a statement piece, a central focus for the heart of the home Joshua had lovingly created. Over the ensuing weeks, as autumn painted the landscape outside in vibrant, rich colors, I sketched countless preliminary designs, attempting to fully capture the essence of Maple Creek Farm and its new meaning. None felt quite right until one morning, watching Jenna ride Midnight across the eastern meadow, something finally clicked fully into place. The painting developed gradually and meticulously. It was not a conventional landscape piece but a fusion of tangible, real, and symbolic elements. Combined, the farm, depicted exactly as it currently stood, occupied the background, rendered with detailed accuracy and precision. In the foreground, a series of translucent layers showed the past clearly, the abandoned property Joshua had acquired, the family farm of his difficult childhood, and beneath it all, the ancient land that had witnessed generations pass by. Threaded through these temporal layers were two figures on horseback, a man and a woman, their features indistinct enough to represent both specific individuals and universal life journeys. Behind them, barely noticeable unless one knew exactly where to look, was a third figure, a young woman forging her own distinct path forward. When the artwork was finally complete and dry, Alice assisted me carefully in hanging it in its designated place in the great room. Jenna stepped back, examining the piece with tears forming in her eyes. "It is him, isn't it? And you and me together," she whispered. She traced the writer's past with her finger. "The past, present, and future of this special place. Legacy," I simply stated in response. "Not merely what is left behind, but what continues forward into the future." That evening, as I watched the sunset from the porch of what was now definitively my home, I felt Joshua's continuing presence not just as a fading memory or a phantom ghost, but as a continuing collaboration we shared. He had provided me not only material stability and wealth, but a foundation for profound reinvention, the freedom to fully discover the person Catherine Mitchell could become, without the strict constraints of circumstance. The oil would successfully ensure financial security for future generations of our family. The farm would continue to evolve based on our careful, responsible management, and I would continue bringing beauty into the world through my newly recovered artistic talents, constructing my own legacy alongside the one Joshua had so meticulously prepared and provided. The video for the next day waited patiently on the laptop inside, another moment of connection and guidance across the boundaries separating us currently. But increasingly, I found myself anticipating the future path rather than dwelling solely on the past, thankful for his foresight, yet eager to actively write the upcoming chapters of this unexpected narrative myself. The forbidden farm had permanently transformed into sacred ground for us. It was no longer a location of pain and closely guarded secrets, as Joshua had once known it to be, but a sanctuary of opportunity, his final and greatest gift of all to me. Winter arrived at Maple Creek Farm with dramatic splendor and beauty. Pristine snow blanketed the rolling pastures entirely, ice crystals formed delicate, intricate designs on the windows, and smoke curled gently from the stone chimney into the crisp Alberta air. I had opted to remain through the entire season instead of returning to Minnesota, compelled to experience the full cycle of seasons on this land. That had become my unexpected residence. Jenna had reluctantly gone back to her life in Minneapolis. Her marketing firm was unwilling to grant her an indefinite extension of her leave of absence. Our daily video ritual persisted via FaceTime calls. The three of us remained consistently connected, Jenna in her urban apartment, me in the farmhouse living room, and Joshua's recorded presence bridging the distance of both time and space separating us. The western hills are especially beautiful after a fresh layer of newly fallen snow covers them, Joshua remarked in today's video, filmed exactly 1 year ago in the very same room. If Alice has maintained the snowmobile in the equipment barn, take it up to the ridge overlooking the valley below. The view at sunrise makes the early wake-up call completely worthwhile. I smiled faintly, amused by his continued ability to perfectly anticipate my experiences and desires. Only yesterday, Alice had mentioned the snowmobile and offered to show me the winter trails Joshua had mapped carefully across the property. 6 months had now passed since my confrontation with the Mitchell brothers. True to the legal settlement agreement, they had successfully kept their required distance, although my attorney occasionally forwarded brief correspondence from their legal team. These were merely technical inquiries regarding property boundaries, as Western Plains Energy initiated preliminary work on the eastern boundary of the farm. The oil extraction project was progressing with deliberate caution and slowness. The company was diligently honoring our unusual agreement that prioritized environmental protection above fast profit generation. Thomas Reeves had become an unanticipated but genuine ally. His initial business interest gradually evolved into sincere respect for the sustainable method Joshua had conceived and I had insisted upon implementing. My phone rang suddenly, interrupting my thoughts completely. Jenna's name flashed clearly on the screen. "Is everything all right with you?" I answered immediately, concerned by the unexpected timing of the call, as our daily video chat was scheduled hours later than this. "I'm uncertain what is happening," she replied, her voice strained and worried. "I just had a strange visit from Uncle David." My grip tightened securely on the phone. "David visited you? What exactly did he want to talk about?" "Officially, he came to apologize for his involvement in attempting to manipulate me against you previously," she explained cautiously. She paused for a moment, but something felt inherently wrong about the whole conversation we had. "He kept asking subtle, probing questions about the farm, whether I visited frequently, if I had observed any unusual activity around the property recently. Did you reveal anything concrete? I asked her. Of course not. I kept my answers extremely vague and non-committal to him. Her voice lowered with suspicion. Mom, I highly suspect they are plotting something again. This felt exactly like reconnaissance work. A chill unrelated to the winter temperature went through me quickly. The Mitchell brothers have been suspiciously quiet for several recent months now. Perhaps they were too quiet for men accustomed to fighting relentlessly for what they desired most. I will inform Ellis right away and step up security measures immediately, I assured her. And I will have my attorney remind theirs of the strict terms of our previous agreement. There was something else he mentioned, Jenna added hesitantly. David mentioned that Robert has been ill recently. Some serious heart condition requiring immediate surgery. He tried strongly to evoke my sympathy, suggesting that families should unite together during difficult periods like this. The same heart condition that had claimed Joshua's life, the genetic hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, inherited from his father. I wondered if Robert had hidden his diagnosis from his own brothers, just as Joshua had concealed his own illness from us. Be cautious and vigilant, Jenna. This could be a genuine, serious situation. Or it might be another manipulative tactic being employed, I warned her. That is precisely what I suspected was happening, she sighed heavily. I hate having to be constantly suspicious of every interaction I have with Dad's family. It should not have to be like this for us. After ending the call, I went to the window overlooking the snow-covered driveway, feeling deeply uneasy and worried. The Mitchell brothers had previously proven themselves deceitful and utterly ruthless competitors. Their seeming retreat might only be a strategic regrouping phase. I immediately contacted Ellis, relaying Jenna's concerns and suspicions. His reaction was typically calm but resolute and determined. I will alert the security personnel immediately and inspect the perimeter surveillance systems thoroughly, he promised me. We installed those systems precisely for this kind of scenario and threat. This was another of Joshua's detailed precautions, discreet but extensive security across the property, with cameras monitoring all entry points and motion sensors covering the most vulnerable approaches to the house. At the time of installation, I had deemed it excessive and unnecessary. Now, I was immensely grateful for his profound foresight. That evening, I found myself instinctively drawn back to the hidden bunker beneath the barn, seeking clear guidance from Joshua's meticulously organized files. If the Mitchell brothers were planning another aggressive attempt to claim Maple Creek Farm, perhaps he had foreseen this possibility as well, and prepared for it. In the concrete room filled with detailed maps and filing cabinets, I searched for anything related to continued threats following the settlement agreement. In the bottom drawer of Joshua's desk, I discovered a folder simply marked if they returned in his precise handwriting. Inside was a detailed contingency plan, outlining specific steps to take if his brothers violated the agreement's terms. This included pre-drafted legal injunctions, contact details for Canadian authorities who had previously investigated their past financial dealings, and surprisingly, a sealed letter addressed specifically to Robert Mitchell. A note in Joshua's handwriting was paper-clipped securely to the envelope. It read, "A last resort, only deliver if absolutely necessary." What exactly had my husband written to his estranged older brother that he considered so potentially devastating or powerful, that it should only be utilized in an extreme circumstance of threat? The envelope remained tightly sealed. The tension posed a final mystery Joshua had left for me to solve only if the circumstances demanded its use. I returned to the main house, the sealed letter safely tucked inside my pocket, my mind analyzing strategies and possibilities rapidly. Outside, a gentle snowfall resumed quietly, adding another flawless layer to the tranquil winter scenery. The next morning, Alice knocked on my door just as I finished my breakfast meal. "We have unexpected visitors arriving," he announced, his expression serious and concerned. "All three Mitchell brothers are present, plus two additional men I do not recognize immediately. They are waiting at the gate entrance." He nodded his head. "They are requesting entrance to the property. Robert claims it is a personal family matter, completely unrelated to the property dispute we had." I moved to the great room window, which provided a distant but clear view of the entrance gates. Two vehicles were waiting there, the familiar black SUV and a less conspicuous sedan. "What do you truly believe they want from us?" I asked Ellis directly. "Nothing positive or beneficial," he replied bluntly and honestly. "But refusing to meet them might potentially provoke whatever they are planning next. It is better to manage the encounter fully on our own terms and conditions." I considered this assessment, my hand subconsciously touching the letter hidden in my pocket. "Instruct security personnel to remain vigilant but fully out of sight. Permit them access only to the main house interior. Absolutely no access to any other buildings or outbuildings." As Alice went to deliver these instructions to the guards, I called my attorney immediately to inform him of the surprise visit taking place. Then I called Jenna to warn her that her uncles had appeared at the farm less than 24 hours after David's seemingly casual visit to her apartment. "Do you want me to come back right away?" she immediately asked, worried. "I can board the next flight available." "No," I decided firmly. "Remain exactly where you are located." This might be precisely their goal, to isolate both of us here on the farm, separated from our external legal support system. Through the window glass, I watched the gates open slowly, permitting the two vehicles to drive up the long driveway. Bracing myself mentally, I went to my bedroom to retrieve one additional item Joshua had left for confrontations of this challenging nature. It was a small digital recorder cleverly disguised as a decorative brooch pin. Whatever the Mitchell brothers intended to do, I planned to have a complete recording of every single word spoken. When the doorbell finally rang, I was waiting calmly in the armchair facing the entryway of the great room, the recorder securely pinned to my sweater, and the mysterious letters safely stored in my pocket. Ellis opened the door with professional courtesy, ushering in our unwelcome guests without delay. Robert entered first, appearing noticeably thinner than at our previous meeting, his skin somewhat grayish beneath his tan complexion. Alan and David followed closely behind, their expressions carefully neutral and unreadable. The two strangers came in last. One carried a medical bag suggesting he was a physician, the other holding a leather portfolio similar to those used by legal professionals. "Catherine," Robert nodded in greeting, his voice lacking its usual authoritative quality and strength. "Thank you for agreeing to see us without prior arrangement being made first. Family always seems to arrive unexpectedly and without warning." I responded mildly and deliberately. "Please take a seat and make yourselves comfortable. Alice, would you please bring coffee for our guests?" As they settled onto the sofas opposite my chair, I observed the palpable tension in their postures, and the way Alan repeatedly glanced at Robert with poorly concealed concern for his health. Whatever the true purpose of their visit, it clearly revolved entirely around the eldest Mitchell brother. "I will be completely frank with you now," Robert began once Ellis had quietly gone to the kitchen. "I have been diagnosed with the exact same heart condition that tragically claimed Joshua's life: hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It is genetic in our Mitchell family line." So, Jenna's information turned out to be accurate and true. I maintained a neutral expression, waiting patiently for him to continue speaking. "My condition is unfortunately advanced in its progression. Specialists estimate I have 6 months to live without intervention, potentially years if the correct treatment is immediately administered." He gestured toward the man with the medical bag. "This is Dr. Harmon, my cardiologist, and Mr. Pearson, my personal lawyer. I regret hearing about your serious health issues," I stated carefully, showing measured sympathy. "But I am unclear why this particular health crisis brings you to Maple Creek Farm today." Robert exchanged concerned looks with his brothers before continuing his request. "I urgently require a heart transplant operation, Catherine. But there is a major complication involved. Our family possesses a rare blood type and specific tissue markers that make locating a compatible donor exceedingly difficult on a public list." A strong suspicion started to form clearly in my mind about their intentions. That certainly sounds challenging to overcome. But again, why approach me specifically with this urgent situation? "Because Dr. Harmon interjected professionally and clinically based on the medical records we reviewed, your late husband would have been a perfect donor match for Robert, and given the genetic factors involved, there is a substantial probability that your daughter might also be medically compatible." The sheer nerve and audacity of their request struck me powerfully and immediately. They intended to test Jenna, to utilize my daughter's body as a possible source of salvation for the man who had previously attempted to steal her inheritance and turn her against me completely. "You are actually requesting that my daughter be tested as a potential organ donor for you personally," I clarified, ensuring the recorder captured every single word of this astounding conversation taking place. "Just preliminary blood work is needed to assess compatibility levels," Alan quickly inserted with a rush. "Nothing invasive or dangerous at this initial stage. And if she proves to be medically compatible," I pressed them further, "what happens next then?" "Then we would sincerely hope she might consider becoming a living donor for Robert." Robert responded solemnly. "The procedure permits partial liver transplantation with minimal documented risk to the donor. Her liver would regenerate entirely within a matter of months." I was struck completely silent, astonished by their breathtaking sense of entitlement and expectation. After attempting to defraud, manipulate, and deceive us so completely, they now expected my daughter to undergo major surgery for a man she barely knew. A man who had actively tried to alienate her from her own mother. "Allow me to confirm my understanding of this entire scenario," I said finally, my voice steady despite my intense internal agitation. "You tried to illegally acquire this property from me, attempted to turn my daughter against me using falsehoods and partial truths. And now you appear here asking if she will undergo major surgery to save your life? Robert at least showed the decency to look visibly uneasy and uncomfortable. I recognize exactly how this unfortunate situation appears right now. But we remain family members. Catherine. Blood connects us strongly regardless of our previous choices in life. Blood, I repeated the word thoughtfully, remembering Joshua's videos, his painful history with these men, and his resolute determination to shield Jenna and me from their detrimental influence. You are absolutely correct on one point you made, Robert. Blood does indeed connect us all, but not in the manner you assume or imply. I withdrew the sealed letter from my pocket, noting the look of instant recognition in Robert's eyes. Joshua left this item specifically for you, I stated, holding it just out of his reach physically, with instructions to deliver it only if it became absolutely necessary to do so. I believe this current situation clearly qualifies for its release. Robert stared intently at the sealed envelope, recognition and apprehension flickering across his drawn face. Joshua wrote something to me privately. Apparently, he foresaw that even a legal settlement would not keep you away permanently from us. I continued holding the letter tightly, not yet handing it over to him. He prepared for every possibility and eventuality, including this one unfolding now. An awkward silence descended upon the room once more. Dr. Harmon shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing he had been drawn into a consultation far more complicated than a standard medical meeting usually entails. The Mitchell brothers exchanged quick looks, a silent communication passing visibly between them. Before I give this letter to you, I continued speaking, I demand absolute clarity regarding your precise request. You want my daughter, the same young woman you lied to and manipulated just 6 months ago, to undergo medical testing and potentially major surgery to save your life right now? It sounds cold and harsh when you describe it that way, Catherine, Alan interjected quickly. But yes, essentially that is a request. Robert's health is serious and deteriorating, and family members offer the very best chance for a compatible donation match. Why not David or Alan instead? I asked directly, looking at the other brothers present. Siblings are typically an even better match than nieces or nephews. Dr. Harmon cleared his throat nervously. We have already tested both Mr. Mitchell's brothers. Neither is medically compatible due to some unusual genetic factors present. And are there no other siblings that might exist? I pressed the point, carefully observing their reactions closely. Are there no other family members who might be suitable organ donors? Another meaningful glance passed quickly between the brothers present. David turned away sharply, suddenly engrossed by the view outside the window. No, Robert firmly replied without hesitation. No other siblings exist. I nodded slowly, then handed him Joshua's sealed letter. I suggest you read this letter immediately before we continue our discussion any further. With slightly shaking hands, Robert broke the seal and unfolded the pages inside the envelope. His eyes scanned the very first few lines, then immediately widened in sheer astonishment. Color completely drained from his face as he continued reading the message, the papers visibly trembling in his grasp. Alan leaned forward anxiously. Robert, what exactly does the letter say to you? Robert did not reply at all, completely absorbed in Joshua's message to him. When he finally looked up from the pages, his expression was utterly transformed and shocked. The self-assured businessman persona was replaced by a man confronting long-buried family ghosts. How long have you been aware of this truth? He asked me hoarsely. I only know that Joshua designated this letter for you with explicit instructions that it contained information you might require someday in the future. I met his gaze steadily. What exactly did my late husband write inside? Robert reluctantly handed the letter over to Alan, who immediately began reading it, with David looking anxiously over his shoulder. Their expressions shifted in near-perfect synchronization, moving from curiosity to profound disbelief, then to something closely resembling horror. This cannot possibly be accurate information, Alan finally said, looking directly at Robert. Father would surely have disclosed this truth to us. Would he truly? Robert retorted bitterly. The same father who successfully pitted us against each other throughout our entire lives, who constantly played favorites based only on his changing mood that day, who openly enjoyed keeping profound secrets hanging over all our heads. I watched their intense exchange with increasing curiosity and interest. Whatever crucial information Joshua had revealed in that letter had clearly shaken the brothers profoundly to their core. Perhaps, I suggested quietly, someone should inform me exactly what my husband wrote about the family. Robert seemed to suddenly remember my presence in the room, his focus returning to me with new awareness. Joshua was not our half-brother, Catherine. He was actually our full biological brother. This information made absolutely no sense to me. I still do not understand the revelation. Joshua told me your father remarried after your mother died giving birth to him. That was why there was such a significant age difference between you and him. That was the narrative we all accepted as truth. Robert confirmed the long-held belief. But according to this letter, Joshua uncovered the real truth while researching his heart condition. Our mother did not tragically die during childbirth. She completely abandoned our father when Joshua was an infant baby, unable to tolerate his abusive conduct any longer. Father deliberately fabricated the story about her death to prevent the scandal of abandonment and to punish her by completely erasing her existence from our memory. But that is certainly not the only revelation contained within. Alan continued, recovering some of his composure. His legal precision reasserted itself even through his intense shock. Joshua discovered that our father had maintained another family unit, a hidden relationship that started before our mother departed and persisted for decades afterward. A woman living in Saskatoon with whom he had 2 more children secretly. Now I finally understood the full significance of the letter. 2 additional Mitchell siblings exist, a brother and sister, both now in their 40s age range. Robert confirmed the existence of new family members, scanning the letter again for details, both sharing our rare blood type and specific genetic markers. According to medical documentation Joshua somehow acquired secretly, and likely completely unaware of their connection to you all. I surmised correctly. As the various elements finally connected, Joshua located them, successfully, but he did not contact them directly. Did he? He merely confirmed their medical compatibility and verifiable existence? Robert nodded silently. According to this message, he even had their contact details verified annually by a private investigator, ensuring the information remained entirely current and usable. In case one of you ever needed exactly what you are currently requesting of Jenna, I finished the thought for him. A compatible donor found from family you never acknowledged existed. The irony of the situation was absolutely staggering and immense. The Mitchell brothers had come to request potentially life-saving organ donation from my daughter, the niece they had attempted to defraud and manipulate severely, while unknown full siblings existed who might offer the exact same necessary medical match. There is much more information, David quietly added, having taken the letter from Alan's grasp. Joshua writes that he only discovered all the secret history following his own terminal diagnosis. He was already planning Maple Creek Farm for you, Catherine, but learning about these other hidden siblings strengthened his profound determination to fully break away from the toxic Mitchell family legacy of manipulation and deep secrets. He states that he wished to create something truthful and transparent to leave behind to us, something constructed purely on love rather than obligation or deceit. Tears stung my eyes again as I recognized my husband's core values reflected in those final words. Even after death, he was actively instructing all of us about the importance of truth and integrity. So then, I stated finally, it appears you have clear alternatives to approaching my daughter, to half-siblings who share your medical markers completely. Strangers to us, Robert weakly protested. We do not even know these individuals exist at all. And whose responsibility is that lack of knowledge? I challenged him directly. Your father chose deliberately to keep them a secret for decades. You and your brothers chose to treat Joshua as less worthy and important than yourselves. Now you must confront the ramifications and consequences of those choices made long ago. Dr. Harmon cleared his throat again professionally. Forgive me for interjecting, but from a medical viewpoint perspective, any potential donor should be contacted without any further delay. Mer Mitchell's condition is deteriorating rapidly now. I looked at the man before me. Robert Mitchell, formerly intimidating and powerful, now diminished significantly by sickness and the sudden collapse of his family narrative. Despite all his damaging actions, I could not bring myself to feel satisfaction in his suffering. Joshua would not have desired that outcome or feeling. The contact information for your half-siblings, I said. Is it provided fully in the letter? Robert nodded silently in affirmation. Then I strongly recommend you start the process there immediately. I told him clearly. Not with demands, but with honesty and humility in your approach. Tell them truthfully who you are. Explain your urgent medical situation and give them the choice that should rightfully be theirs alone to make. Just as such a major choice would solely belong to Jenna, not yours or mine, if you had approached her with truth from the very start of this situation. And if they should decline to help us? Alan inquired anxiously. Then Jenna will be completely free to decide for herself if she wishes to be tested for compatibility. I responded firmly. But she will make that profound decision with full awareness of all the facts and all available alternatives present. No pressure tactics, no manipulation involved, and absolutely no lies told to her. The Mitchell brothers accepted this ultimatum silently. The family resemblance between them and my late husband was suddenly more pronounced in their humbled, exposed expressions. Joshua had shared their strong jawline and deep-set eyes, features I now noticed with fresh clarity and understanding. We will leave the farm now, Robert finally said, rising with visible effort from the sofa. "Thank you for this essential information." He gestured towards the letter, which David carefully folded and returned to the envelope. As Ellis escorted them out of the house, I remained seated, processing the unexpected implications and revelation of the letter. Joshua had known he had other siblings, family members, who might have welcomed him into their lives, who shared his biological heritage and history. Yet he had chosen to keep that sensitive knowledge entirely private, utilizing it only as a protective measure for Jenna and me after his certain death. That evening, a snow softly fell outside the wide windows of Maple Creek Farm. I opened the laptop for Joshua's daily video message. His familiar face appeared on the screen, recorded exactly a year earlier in this very same room. "Hello, my love," he began warmly, his smile warming me across the distance of time. "If my calculations are accurate, today might be the day my brothers attempt to play their medical card against you. They have been fully aware of my heart condition for years now. Our father made certain to inform them when I was first diagnosed as a teenager, though they never offered any assistance or support then." I gasped softly, astonished once again by his profound foresight and prediction. "If they have approached you or Jenna about organ donation compatibility, then you have given them the letter regarding our other siblings now." His expression grew thoughtful and reflective. "I considered contacting them myself many times throughout the years I was alive, but their lives were settled and stable, their families complete. I strongly questioned my right to disrupt that stability with ancient family history and biological ties that might hold no meaning or importance for them now." He leaned closer toward the camera lens. "The profound reality, Kat, is that family is truly not defined solely by blood alone. It is defined by the critical choices we actively make in our lives. I chose Jenna and you as my cherished family unit. I hope whoever Robert and the others approach will be granted the same essential freedom of choice to connect or not connect, to assist or not assist, without pressure, manipulation, or obligation imposed upon them." As the video continued, Joshua shared his deep thoughts on legacy and family with characteristic depth and wisdom. I felt a strong sense of closure settling over me internally. The Mitchell brothers had arrived seeking to use Jenna as a means to an end result, just as they had habitually used Joshua throughout his life. Instead, they were unexpectedly compelled to confront the complicated web of secrets woven by their father and the direct consequences of their own damaging past choices. Whether they would contact their newly discovered siblings with genuine openness or the same manipulative tactics they had always employed remained to be seen by the world. But that was no longer my primary concern, nor Jenna's, nor Joshua's responsibility anymore. We had successfully broken free from the toxic Mitchell family dynamics, securing our own desired legacy through Maple Creek Farm and the new life we were actively constructing here on this land. Joshua had utterly transformed the prison of his childhood into my personal sanctuary, his painful history into my promising, open future. The Forbidden Farm had indeed become sacred ground to us, not because of the oil beneath the soil or the financial security it offered, but because it represented Joshua's ultimate victory over the family who rejected him, and the enduring, powerful love that sustained him completely. Spring would eventually return to Maple Creek Farm. The horses would graze contentedly in green pastures once more. Oil would be responsibly extracted from the western hills, adhering to ethical standards. And I would continue creating meaningful art in the studio my husband had designed specifically for me. Jenna would visit whenever possible, perhaps bringing her own children one day to explore the land their grandfather had restored, and ride horses across the fields. And Joshua would remain permanently present in the legacy he had so carefully designed, not just in the daily videos that would eventually conclude fully, but in every single corner of this place. That profoundly reflected his determination, his immense foresight, and his abiding love of the errors of the past would not dictate the shape of the future to come. The forbidden site had transformed into the cherished one. The secret had successfully become the celebrated truth we now shared, and I, Catherine Mitchell, had become the guardian of a legacy, built not on biological ties or familial obligation, but on the purest possible foundation. Available, love freely given and gratefully received in return. Until tomorrow. My love, Joshua concluded the day's video message. Until tomorrow, I softly replied in response, recognizing that although the next day would bring a new video, a new message retrieved from the past, it would also bring me one day closer to the future I was actively creating for myself. Inspired deeply by his powerful example, yet distinctly shaped by my own emerging strength and resolve, the legacy of Maple Creek Farm endured, no longer forbidden or off-limits, but forever profoundly transformed by love. The source concludes with thanks for watching, a request to share, subscribe, and comment on liking the story.